Today, we're diving into a book that didn't just sell a ton of copies, it pretty much started a whole movement. Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. I mean, that title alone, it's not just a title, it's a direct challenge to basically everything we've been taught about work, about retirement, and what it means to live a rich life. So let's get into it.
Ferriss kicks things off with this zinger from Oscar Wilde, and it sets the stage perfectly. Now, this isn't about being reckless with your money. Not at all. It's about radically expanding your imagination beyond the path we're all sold. You know, trade your time for money until you're 65, and then you can finally live. And this is where it gets really real. Ferriss points out that for millions of people, this question isn't some hypothetical anymore. With pensions disappearing and all the old safety nets gone, that promise of a golden retirement is, well, it's fading. But this isn't supposed to be scary. It's a wake-up call. The reality has changed, so we need a new plan.
So what is the actual problem we're trying to solve here? Ferriss calls it the deferred life plan. You know, the trap of sacrificing all your best, most energetic years now for some vague promise of freedom way down the road. He says this system basically creates the living dead.
To really paint a picture of this, Ferriss tells a story about a guy named Mark he met on a flight. And this guy, Mark, he was the absolute picture of success. A business magnate who could drop $500,000 in Vegas over a weekend and not even blink. By every single metric, he'd won the game, right?
Nope, wrong. When Ferriss asked him which of his businesses he actually enjoyed, the answer was immediate. None of them. Mark admitted he'd spent 30 years working with people he didn't even like, just to buy stuff he didn't need. He was incredibly wealthy, sure, but he was one of the living dead, totally trapped in a golden cage.
Mark's story is kind of the dead end of that old model. So what's the alternative? Well, Ferriss introduces us to a new group of people who are playing a completely different game. He calls them the new rich.
And the key here, this is absolutely crucial, is a total redefinition of the word rich. It's not about having $1 billion in the bank. For the new rich, wealth is measured in freedom. It's about having the time and the mobility to live your ideal lifestyle right now. Their currency isn't just money, it's autonomy.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got the deferrers. They're working toward a finish line that, honestly, might never come. But on the right, you have the new rich. They're not trying to stop working. They're building systems that free them up to go have adventures. So instead of a 2-week vacation, they design their life around these multi-month mini-retirements.
So this is Tim Ferriss's kind of smart-aleck answer when people ask him, so what do you do? The joke has a really serious point, though. The new rich separate their identity from their job. Who they are isn't defined by how they make money, but by how they choose to live their lives.
Okay, this all sounds amazing in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? Well, it all starts with completely rewriting the basic rules of how we think about productivity.
The first rule is the 80-20 principle. You might have heard of it as Pareto's law. It's a simple but totally revolutionary idea. A tiny fraction of what you do, about 20%, is what produces the vast majority of your results. The secret isn't to do more work. It's to figure out what that vital 20% is and just ruthlessly get rid of everything else.
And here's exactly how Ferriss used this in his own business. He looked at his customer list and realized a few key customers were generating most of his profit, while a much bigger group was causing pretty much all of his headaches. So what did he do? He fired the problem clients. His revenue dropped a tiny bit, but his free time and his sanity just skyrocketed. He focused only on the productive few.
All right, the second rule is Parkinson's law. And you're going to recognize this one for sure. Think about it. If a teacher gives you a whole month to write a paper, it takes you a month. If they gave you 1 week, you'd get it done in a week. Work just expands to fill whatever time you give it. By setting short, tight deadlines, you force yourself to focus only on what is absolutely essential.
So right about now, you're probably thinking, this is great, but I can't just up and quit my job. And that brings us to the single biggest thing that stops everybody: fear. But Ferriss argues that instead of letting fear paralyze us, we need a system to actually manage it. The first step is to get super specific. Don't let fear just be this vague, foggy feeling of dread. You have to define your nightmare. What is the absolute, quantifiable, worst-case scenario? See, by refusing to actually define it, we let fear become this giant, shapeless monster hiding in the shadows.
This process is what Ferriss calls fear setting. So after you define that worst-case scenario, you brainstorm how you could prevent it, and this is the most important part, how you would repair the damage if it actually happened. And what you almost always find out is that the potential downside is temporary and reversible, but the potential upside, that's life-changing.
For a lot of people, the 9 to 5 can feel exactly like this, right? A fill-in-the-blanks disaster. Ferriss argues that staying put just because you're afraid is often the biggest risk you can possibly take. The goal isn't to just leap blindly, but to engineer a calculated, well-planned escape.
So once you've engineered that escape, what does life actually look like on the other side? Well, it's not about endless laziness on a beach somewhere. It's a life of adventure, and it's built around this awesome concept called mini-retirements.
A mini-retirement is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of saving up all your freedom for when you're 65, you sprinkle it throughout your life in these 1 to 6 month blocks. You're basically taking your retirement and enjoying it while you're young and healthy and energetic, whether that's learning a new language in Spain or scuba diving for a few months in Thailand. I know what you're thinking. This sounds impossibly expensive. But check out the story of Julie and Mark. They took a 15-month trip around the world on their sailboat. After they sold the boat, their total net cost for that entire adventure was just $19,000. That's less than what a lot of people pay for a year of rent.
Which leads us to this really powerful question for you to think about. What did you spend your last $19,000 on? Was it a down payment, a kitchen remodel? Or maybe it just kind of disappeared into 1,000 small, forgettable expenses. That same amount of money could fund a life-changing adventure. It's really just a question of priority.
This quote from Machiavelli just nails the whole philosophy. We're all conditioned to think that playing it safe is the smart move. But doing nothing, what he calls a mistake of sloth, is often the biggest risk of all, because it guarantees that nothing will ever change. A mistake of ambition, on the other hand, well, that's what leads to growth and a life that's actually lived to the fullest.
We'll end on this strange but really powerful question. It comes from a story where Ferriss made this terrible cheesecake, but he kept eating it just because of all the time and effort he'd put into making it. That cheesecake is a metaphor for any bad situation, a job, a city, a relationship that we stick with just because of our sunk costs. So the final question is for you. What cheesecake are you eating?
Thanks for watching and subscribe now for more.